My name is Sam Abrams. I'm the director of the National Center for the Study of Privatization in Education at Teachers College, Columbia University. This center was founded by Henry Levin back in 1999. He asked me to take over 2 years ago. The center is focused on the study of privatization in education. Some on the left think we're the National Center for Privatization in Education. Some on the right have concluded that we're the National Center for the Study of Why Privatization in Education doesn't work. Even more of a mouthful than our title. But we aim to be dispassionate, objective. And that was my aim in writing this book, Education in the Commercial Mindset. I had written a thesis for a master's degree under Henry Levin, and Levin encouraged me to turn that thesis into a book, and this book is the result of that effort. Now, the commercial mindset in education is really a history of an idea, and we can go back to 1955 with Milton Friedman writing in an important essay called The Role of Government in Education that we should outsource management of schools to for-profit operators, private operators, and let parents decide. Parents would be the regulators of the quality of schools by using vouchers for their children and sending them to whichever school they wanted, so long as those schools met minimum requirements. But the commercial mindset, I think we can say, goes back even further in time. Basic to American DNA is business. There's a rugged individualistic spirit to the American psyche. Frederick Jackson Turner in his Frontier thesis in the 1890s about who we are in conquering territory and distinguishing ourselves as tough and individual is basic to that idea. The Principles of Scientific Management, written by Frederick Winslow Taylor in 1911, is also basic to this notion that we have to quantify everything, and we can increase efficiency through better quantification. Calvin Coolidge in the 1920s famously said, "The business of America is business." Now, by the 1990s, there was so much frustration with the quality of public education, and this comes in the wake of A Nation at Risk, the famous report issued under President Reagan in 1983, also in the wake of the fall of the Berlin Wall in 1989 and the rise of Margaret Thatcher before that. This frustration with the public education system led to the belief that Milton Friedman was right, and we should outsource school management. Now, there are two stages to this, and the first stage was about for-profit management. Wall Street was very much behind this idea. You had Wall Street forecasters and analysts saying that by 2010, 10 to 20% of America's public schools, and we have about 100,000 public schools, would be run for profit. That is by 2010. By 2010, in fact, there were only 750 or so run for profit, and that's what it is today. So Wall Street was wrong, and in my book I explore why Wall Street was wrong. The free market is beautiful when you're talking about discrete goods and services. We're not going to begrudge Pizza Hut a profit. As adults, we can decide on the quality of the food, the decor, the service. The same thing for a bookstore, the same thing for so many different things that we buy. But there, we're talking about the provision of a discrete good or service, whether it's the book at the bookstore or the pizza at a Pizza Hut. But where you're talking about managing a school, you're talking about a complex service, and the immediate consumer is a child. The taxpayer, the legislator, the parent are at a necessary distance. Some will say that testing can be that control of quality, but we know there are a lot of problems in using testing as a control for quality. We can teach to the test, and in teaching to the test, we crowd out subjects that aren't being tested. In the extreme, we've had teachers under such pressure to erase wrong answers. They've had erasure parties and put in the right answers, or give students more time. Testing isn't the answer. The second stage of privatization and these happen at the same time. They're essentially fraternal twins. The nonprofit charter management organization sector and the for-profit educational management organization sector, kind of an answer to the health maintenance organizations, the HMOs, didn't operate for profit, but they use the same metrics, and they've set the standard for focusing on numbers in reading and math in particular. So if we go all the way back in time again to Frederick Winslow Taylor and Calvin Coolidge, and this notion that everything is business, you even see that in this nonprofit charter management organization world. And this is not to say that business ideas are bad for education. There are a lot of great business ideas for education. And I write about that in the final chapter of my book, which concerns, ironically, Finland, which hasn't gone down the path of privatization at all. But they have put into practice business ideas better than any other country. First, taking a page from economists regarding efficiency wages, that it costs less to pay more. So you have to pay your teachers well. Second, from Alfred Chandler, the great historian of business, you have to cultivate talent from within. And in doing that, and great corporations, Alfred Chandler documented, do that, you have to make the work experience very appealing, you have to make that career attractive, and you have to nurture that talent. The Finns do a very good job of that. Third, from W. Edwards Deming, the great managerial theorist, sampling, high quality sampling. So instead of census testing, you just test a small percentage of students, and you do it in a range of subjects over a long period of time. The Finns test just 10% of 9th grade. Over a 10-year period, they cover every subject, from language and mathematics to culinary arts and physical fitness and agility. Finally, for another business idea, and this comes from W. Edwards Deming again, we need to look through the eyes of the consumer. Now that's a strange concatenation of words to apply to education, but if we look through the eyes of the child as the consumer in education, we can see what should make more sense. This does not mean we have to make school an amusement park, but we do have to make school enticing, and with lots of art and music and crafts and play complementing rigorous instruction in these other subjects, which should be largely project-based, and the Finns distinguish themselves in that regard. You can make school enticing. You want school children to want to go to school, and with all of our testing, which comports with this commercial mindset, unfortunately, we're driving kids to not like school. Even Secretary of Education Arne Duncan a couple of years ago said that we're sucking the oxygen out of the classroom with all of this testing. He conceded it himself soon after the Obama administration said we had to dial down the emphasis on testing. So this book is an exploration of an idea, and privatization, the commercial mindset, they make sense. They're good when you're talking about the provision of a discrete good or service. But they're highly problematic when you're talking about the management of a complex service. And that has to be understood.